Big story out of the UK over the last week or so has been the BBC and this dossier that the Telegraph got their hands on that has gone through all manner of bias going on at the BBC. Of course, the biggest one has been that doctored footage of Trump's speech on January 6 for their Panorama documentary program that makes it look like he's saying things that he's not actually saying. Well, would you believe it, the outgoing BBC Director General, Tim Davie, who has fallen on his sword because of all of this, he says there is nothing wrong at all.
I'm here to lead and support the BBC. I'm very, very proud of our journalists in this building. They're doing work I think that's incredibly important. I want to thank every one of them. They're doing a wonderful job. Also, everyone across the BBC doing their thing for the UK, and personally, I'm here to lead and support them. The BBC's going to be thriving, and I support every one of the team. I'm very proud of them. Thank you very much, Aaron.
Look, it may thrive, but that's partly because you are leaving. So they might be able to sort out a few problems now, buddy. And he's just blind to what has actually been going on. He's denying it. I mean, you know, these are the death throes of when someone is being overturned and they say, no, there is nothing wrong. It's actually everyone else who is at fault. I'm not leaving because I've done anything wrong. I'm leaving for the good of the organisation. Because he went on to say that it was the enemy's quote-unquote fault that all of these stories were coming out, that they had a vendetta against the BBC, and that in fact the BBC was the very best of British society and media. I would have thought, given the stuff we've read about, you know, you can't produce any story at the BBC that is gender critical in any way. They're doctoring up videos of Donald Trump. I wouldn't have called that the best of Britain myself. And I don't really think it's down to enemies that this stuff has come out. It's just that someone simply said, yeah, that's going on.
Someone has looked at the two speeches and thought, oh, a really key part of Donald Trump's speech has been edited out here.
Oh, enemies.
To make it now look like he directly encouraged the riot that happened on January 6th. And I think it's great that Donald Trump is going to go after them and sue for $1.5 billion, Australian equivalent $1.5 billion, and doing it out of Florida too, which they have no caps or limits on things when you go after a defamation case. Because this year, again, identity politics, things like that sticks. He was then regarded as someone who was fiery and he was encouraging that riot, and it made people think that he was this horrible person, when in fact he was saying, let's go down there and cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. But the BBC and the ABC too, which I know Kenny has been highlighting very well on his programs, they also doctored that speech too. But I think it's great that he's called it out. We've had two heads have rolled from the BBC, and that he's now going to sue for defamation.
Yeah, it's just the most outrageous example of blatant misinformation, to actually use the correct misinformation in its correct sense, which I haven't heard anyone on the left say about this, interestingly.